Hi everyone, Dr. Becca here with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health. I want to take a couple minutes this morning and talk about dual relationships. Dual relationships are when we have one type of relationship with a person. Typically, it's a professional relationship. So if I were to serve as their BCBA or psychologist, and then oftentimes the sort of other relationship tends to be of a more personal nature. And so that would be going for coffee or grabbing a drink with a parent that we serve. And that is just not permitted, right? So the BACB, the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, which is our credentialing body as BCBAs and RBTs, as well as the APA, so the American Psychological Association, are very clear that dual relationships should be avoided as much as possible and really at all costs. And the reason is because it can have negative effects for the child and the family that we serve. And so you're probably thinking, well, how can that be possible? If we're friends, then I'm going to do an even better job. And it actually isn't true. It muddies the water. And so when we are in a therapeutic relationship, we have to always be thinking about what that client needs or what that family needs. And when we're in a friendship, it isn't always the same, right? Our own thoughts, feelings kind of come into that relationship, and we just can't have that in the therapeutic relationship. So when there's a behavior that needs to be corrected, whether by the child, we have to do that. Or when there's difficult conversations to have with a parent about whether it's an environmental change that has to happen, or a behavior change on their end that might help make things go more smoothly for them and their child, those can be tough to have. And so when we have those firm boundaries about who we are and who we aren't in our roles, it does make it easier to have. Those of you guys that are my direct supervisees have probably heard my metaphor about therapy is really like a play in that the spotlight should always be on the person who's receiving services. And when we stay in our professional role, and only our professional role, we are better able to keep that spotlight on the family or the child receiving services. When we're in a friendship role, or there's like an additional friend or less formal component to the relationship, it's easier for that spotlight to turn on us. Maybe we self-disclose more, and that sort of turns that light to us instead of being on the client. And that can be challenging because we are there to provide a medically necessary service for the behavioral excesses and deficits related to autism, or if it's mental health treatment to lessen some of the anxiety or depression or sort of anger, big emotion challenges that the person is experiencing. And so that spotlight needs to be on them. One of the things that comes up with dual relationships is often social media. And just a reminder that our policy at Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health is that for social media, it is not permitted to be friends with people that we serve, as far as clients that we serve. And I would gently challenge about whether it would be necessary or appropriate to be friends with people that we used to serve on Facebook as well, right? Because who is that for? Is that for us? Is that for the client? It also means that then you will never be able to work with them in a professional capacity again. So these are the kinds of things that we really want to think about and are great things to bring to supervision and really kind of talk about, so that we're sure that we're always making the decisions that's best for our client and not maybe what's best for us. And that's hard because we're human. And just like in saying about avoiding dual relationships, we definitely don't want to be robots, right? We are big believers, or I am a big believer, that the relationship has to come first, and that a strong therapeutic relationship is really the foundation for any behavior change, whether it's in behavior analysis or speech therapy, occupational therapy, psychology, that really we want that firm and strong relationship. But that doesn't mean that we have to self-disclose to build that relationship. right? We can empathize with the person, use our active listening skills, and be a human there in the room with them or in their home with them, while keeping, again, that spotlight off of us and on them. This is their time, it's their services. So we want to be thoughtful about what we do disclose about ourselves, right? I mean, sharing your favorite food is probably pretty benign, but talking about a date that you had or family challenges that might be happening for the RBT are definitely not appropriate. And so if that's happening for a parent, I would encourage the parent to bring that to the supervisor and talk about it, because we definitely want the parent and child to have the best experience possible. And if that's happening as an RBT and you're realizing that maybe you've over disclosed or you're not sure, definitely bring that to your supervisor so that we can talk about it and help figure out what is the best and most appropriate. When events come up where dual relationships have been formed, it's usually unintentional, that people didn't think about it. But when that happens, we do need to make staffing changes because it does impede the progress potentially that a child can make. And we always want to be focused on the child making progress. And people will say, well, gosh, Becca, how can their progress be worse if I am friends with or I get along really well with the parent? And I think it's not about not getting along with a parent. Again, it's about keeping that spotlight on the child and the therapeutic relationship and not on us. And when we become friends or more friendly, it's easier to sit and chat at maybe the first 10 minutes or intermittently throughout session. And all of those minutes add up to time that the child is not getting services. Or then people say, well, gosh, Dr. Beck, I only chat with mom during the child's breaks. Okay, I would also gently challenge that in those cases, breaks probably go on a little bit longer than what would be typically considered, or it's easy for breaks to get more frequent or longer in duration. And again, that's because the light is moving to us instead of to making clinically based decisions for the child. So again, a reminder that dual relationships are a big no-no, not just in behavior analysis, but also in mental health services. It's clearly outlined in our ethics code, and we always want to be referring back to that ethics code, because recognizing that it does exist for a reason, and that maybe something isn't an issue right now, but it has the potential to become an issue in the future. Also recognizing and acknowledging that we are all human and we like a lot of the families that we work with. And so it's easy to have those roles blur. And in those moments, really think about, why am I saying this, or why am I doing this? Who is this going to benefit? Is this for the benefit of the child, or is this kind of moving that spotlight onto me? And then really reach out to your supervisor, whether you're a parent or an RBT that maybe is thinking that a dual relationship may have formed, because we want to talk about it. It doesn't mean that automatically there's going to be a change in staff, but it may mean that, and that's because we are highly committed to doing what is best for the kids and the families that we serve. And we have to depend on the research and the guidelines set forth by our credentialing body, and that we take that very seriously. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.